Bradley Manning, of course, is being court-martialed right now. He's already admitted to doing some of the lower-level offenses, saying, yes, I did leak the information to WikiLeaks. He's going to explain why in testimony. In fact, he did 2 weeks ago. But it is an incredibly secretive process, and the court will not allow any video of it or audio of Manning's statements. God forbid that we should actually get his side of the story. Of course, they want to cover that up, too, which is a little ironic, to say the least. They won't even let anybody take a picture of Bradley Manning. This is, of course, a propaganda war that the U.S. government is running against Bradley Manning and anyone who would actually expose any of their information. Unless, of course, it's a leak that they're in favor of, which they give to people like Bob Woodward all the time. But now the Freedom of the Press Foundation, which is a relatively recent group that has come out, said, hey, you know what? We've actually got his whole testimony from 2 weeks ago. It's over an hour long. They've got the audio tapes of it, and they have released it, which is a great service to the American people because we get to find out Manning's side of his story from his own words. So now, first, one of the things that the government always says about Bradley Manning is, my God, this guy, it was very dangerous, gave the information to our enemies. In fact, he's charged with aiding the enemy, which is the most serious charge you could possibly have and could serve a life sentence for that. So was that his intent? Absolutely not. Listen to what Manning says.
After they conduct counterterrorism, or CT, and counterinsurgency coin operations, we became obsessed with capturing and killing human targets on lists and on being suspicious of and avoiding cooperation with our host nation partners, and ignoring the second and third order effects of accomplishing short-term goals and missions. I believe that if the general public, especially the American public, had access to the information contained within the Sidney Ides and the A tables, this could spark a domestic debate on the role of the military and our foreign policy in general, as well as it related to Iraq and Afghanistan. I also believe the detailed analysis of the data over a long period of time by different sectors of society might cause society to reevaluate the need or even the desire to engage in counterterrorism and counterinsurgency operations that ignore the complex dynamics of the people living in the affected environment every day.
So his real intent was to have the American people find out what their government was doing so that they could have a debate about it, so that they could be informed enough to have a realistic conversation about what we're doing in Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, that would be the textbook definition of a whistleblower. Now you say, hey, look, that's him testifying in his own trial. But remember, without needing to, he did what is called a naked plea. Without getting a plea deal from the prosecutors, admitted exactly what he had done, knowing that he could serve up to 20 years for the offenses he already admitted to. So he has a good track record certainly on being extraordinarily honest, even within his own court-martial. Plus, this is really important, he said the same exact things to the guys that turned him in when he had no idea that would have gone public. Those informants, as they were talking to Bradley Manning before he was arrested, and he had any idea he was going to be arrested, Bradley Manning told the informants, hey, listen, man, I thought there was an important debate that the country needed to have, and I had this information, and it would be wrong not to share it with the country. And of course, he's right about that. I mean, look at the things that we found out. There was 15,000 extra Iraqi civilian deaths that our government was covering up. Of course, the famous Apache murder video where the Apache helicopter comes in and shoots first responders, including a van that pulled up that had children in it where they were trying to rescue the wounded. And of course, a couple of Reuters reporters were killed in that. He also showed that the U.S. policy expressly barred U.S. troops from investigating human rights abuses by Iraqi forces. And of course, even more civilian deaths in Afghanistan as well. This is all information we needed to know that the government wasn't sharing with us. Now you can say he could serve some time because he still broke the law. But he's already served a great number of years, and some of them he was actually tortured in. In fact, his court-martial judge said, yes, you were mistreated, and we will take some time off because of your mistreatment that you already suffered in jail. Enough is enough. Now, you know what I think. I think we need to free Bradley Manning. But let's listen to Manning more to get a sense of what he was trying to do, because this next part is amazing. He talks about how the Iraqi government was using basically our intelligence guys to find people who were opposed to the government. Even though they were not terrorists, they were not bad guys, they just wanted to eliminate their political opposition, and they were using us to do it. Watch.
On 27 February 2010, a report was received from a subordinate battalion. The report described an event in which the Federal Police obtained, or FP, detained 15 individuals for printing anti-Iraqi literature. Over the course of my research, I found that none of the individuals had previous ties with anti-Iraqi actions or suspected terrorist or militia groups. A few hours later, I received several photos from the scene from the subordinate battalion. I printed a blown-up copy of the high-resolution photo and laminated it for ease of use and transfer. I then walked to the top and delivered the laminated copy to our Category 2 interpreter. He said the general nature of the document was benign. The documentation, as I assessed as well, was merely a scholarly critique of the then current Iraqi Prime Minister, al-Maliki.
To give you a sense of what he's talking about, the specifics, so they translate the material, this is the stuff that's supposed to be anti-Iraqi insurgents, and they realize it's just guys who are arguing against Maliki, the current prime minister, and in fact, it's a highly intellectual argument against him. It lists corruption, and it lists the financial impact of his corruption on the Iraqi people, exactly what you should have in a democracy. So then, Bradley Manning, having done his job, doing intelligence on that, brings it to his superiors, and listen to what happens next.
It detailed corruption within the cabinet of al-Maliki's government and the financial impact of this corruption on the Iraqi people. After discovering this discrepancy between the federal police's report and the interpreter's transcript, I forwarded this discovery to the top OIC and Battle NCOIC. The top OIC, overhearing Battle captain, informed me that they didn't want or that they didn't need or want to know this information anymore. They told me to, quote, drop it, unquote, and to just assist them and the federal police in finding out where more of these print shops creating, quote, anti-Iraqi literature, unquote, might be. I couldn't believe what I heard, and I returned to the T-skip and complained to the other analysts in my section NCOIC about what happened. Some were sympathetic, but no one wanted to do anything about it.
What would you do? Did you understand what he's saying there? They find out that these are perfectly legitimate political opponents of Maliki, goes to the superiors and they say, just drop it. Now, do you understand what happens to these guys when, and drop it doesn't mean we're dropping the case. Drop your whole, nonsense about what it actually says. We don't give a damn what it actually says. We're going to go round those guys up. When they round them up, they hand them over to the Iraqi police, where they most likely will get tortured and might never be released. They might even be killed. So what would you do? Would you just say, oh, okay, great, here. Well, terrific. Here's the names of the anti-Iraqi people. Go ahead and torture or possibly even execute them. Now, if you're a person of conscience, you might also think about, hey, maybe I should leak this so that I could prevent that from happening. In fact, that's exactly what Bradley Manning thought. Watch.
I knew that if I continued to assist Baghdad federal police in identifying the political opponents of Prime Minister al-Maliki, those people would be arrested and in the custody of the special unit of the Baghdad federal police, very likely tortured and not seen again for a very long time, if ever. I decided to take the information and disclose it to the WLO in the hope that before the upcoming 7th March 2010 election, they could generate some immediate press on the issue and prevent this unit of the federal police from continuing to crack down on political opponents of al-Maliki.
Now, the one thing Bradley Manning was consistently wrong on is he thought if I release this information, it might have an impact. Of course, our politician and our government doesn't care about what reality is at all. They're the same guys who told him to drop it. So even if after we found out all these things, what happened? They continued to send political opponents of Maliki to get tortured and to get imprisoned, etc. We continued the war in Iraq. We certainly continued the war in Afghanistan for years and years. We're still in the middle of that war in Afghanistan. We didn't change any of our policies, and we continue to use drone strikes now, which is, different than the Apache helicopter, but an expansion of the overall idea of hitting first responders. We do double taps with those drone strikes. So unfortunately, Bradley Manning had the right intent, but it didn't work because nobody gave a damn when he gave that information. Now we give a damn, and a lot of you out there care about it and understand that's why Bradley Manning's a whistleblower and in a lot of ways a hero. But of course the government doesn't see it that way, and they're hoping to put him in prison for decades and maybe his entire life. Now, one last thing about this. Now, when it comes to the diplomatic cables, one of the ideas the government always puts out there is, oh, yeah, just carelessly put out all those cables out there. Could have done us tremendous damage. Could have had the names of people that got killed. It turns out he also said in his testimony, no, I actually checked, double checked. I had a lot more information. I didn't release it just in case that it was top secret or might actually do somebody harm. I only released the things that I thought that the American people could learn from. And he said, we got into the First World War, World War I, because of secret pacts, etc. And I wanted to help try to avoid that. And by the way, he did have a huge impact, at least in other countries. Some of those cables that were released were part of the reason we had the revolution in Tunisia and in Egypt. Not the whole reason, but a part of the reason. So that transparency at least helped to shine a light on things that made a huge difference in the world. And for that, what do you get? A possible life sentence in America. How dare you try to educate people? How dare you try to inform the American voters? Meanwhile, of course, as I've said over and over, Bob Woodward sources who released far more classified information, top secret information, that Bradley Manning never released that level. They're free to go because they released information from government officials on leaks that helped their political careers. Now, you still think Bradley Manning should be in jail? Hell no. If he's in jail, every one of those Bob Woodward sources should be in jail, and none of them are. It's way past time to free Bradley Manning. We need to do it right now.